Hi everybody, this video is an introduction to a series I'll be doing on some basic penetration testing tools and techniques. I'm by no means a professional pen tester, but I completed my OSCP certification a couple of years ago, and in the run up to that did a lot of machines on Vulnhub and Hack the Box and things like that. I've been doing CTFs for a few years, so I'm putting this video series together essentially because there's a pen testing module on the Masters in Cybersecurity course which I'm helping to prepare content for and providing demonstrations and stuff for. So I figured I might as well put together some videos at the same time and demonstrate some of the same tools that we'll be using in the. So throughout this video series I'll mostly be using ParaOS, which is what I'm inside right now, and this is within VMware Workstation, but you can use something like VirtualBox as well. And you don't have to use ParaOS. This is the operating system I'm using. You can use something like Kali, or you can just use an Ubuntu VM as well and install some tools on it. That'll all be fine. I might sometimes swap over to Commando VM, which is a Windows VM set up a bit like Kali. It basically is set up to contain a lot of different pen testing tools and a lot of tools which are useful for CTFs as well. So some people don't recommend this. I recommend it personally myself. I think it's got a lot of good tools on it, and even setting up the VM, it'll go through removing a lot of stuff on Windows, which takes a lot of time to actually fully remove, and configurations which can take a while. So I recommend checking this out, but I probably won't be using it too much through this series. I'll mostly be using the Linux system where. And now that we've covered the two operating systems that I'll be using, let's look at the machines that we'll be testing the tools against. So Metasploitable3, as you can see here, is an intentionally vulnerable machine set up for exploit testing. So we're going to set this up. I'm going to set this up from inside my ParaOS here, but you can also set it up on VirtualBox. And I'll also use some Hack the Box retired machines, so you can't post walkthroughs for active machines, so we'd need to use the retired machines, which aren't free to access, but I'll try and alternate between Metasploitable3, which is free and we'll be setting up in this video, and Hack the Box, and also some Vulnhub VMs as well, which are free to download and set up. You can use some other sites as well, like TryHackMe has vulnerable VMs on it for testing, and there'll be plenty of others. I'll also put some links in the description to some useful tools for penetration testing and some guides. So if you're ever looking for some help with tools or general pen testing techniques, it's always good to just go on Google, search for some OSCP cheat sheets or guides, and you'll find plenty of information. I still have some notes from my OSCP, but not laid out in as they were never made for public consumption, so they've not been laid out in a way that will be as useful as many of these. So they'll be placed in the description, but let's go ahead and get the Metasploitable. So I'm going to close down these tabs. We don't need those open at the moment. The only thing we're interested in is setting up Metasploitable3. So we'll open up the GitHub repo. And if you have a look here, there's some different options for setting this up. You can build this yourself, and you need Vagrant, you need this Vagrant Reload plugin, VirtualBox, or if you're using VMware, you need the paid license in order to set this up. Basically, I think that's to do with the. I think it's to do with enabling the virtual. You have to like enable this VT-X as a virtual option inside the virtual machine. I believe that's the case. I'm using VMware anyway. I have this enabled now for this virtual machine. I didn't originally, so if you're having problems, just go into your VM settings and make sure this is enabled in the processor settings. But if you're using VirtualBox, which I think is typically recommended for this, and most people probably will be, you can either follow these guys to build it, or you can do what I'm going to do here and use a pre-built image, which is going to be the easiest option. So I'm going to go ahead and make this directory, and we need to cd into the directory, and then we're going to try to download this and run Vagrant up. Okay, so we'll cd in there. I don't have Vagrant installed, so I'll install that now. At some points during this demo, during this introduction, I'm going to need to install things, or things are going to take a while to run, in which case sometimes you'll just see it speeding through because I'll speed up the time. So don't worry if yours is taking like 5 or 10 times longer than mine is. Yeah, kind of like that. Okay, so let's try that again. And you see here I've run into another error where we're missing this WinRM elevated. So I'm going to install this, gem install, and let's try and run it again. We should already have this downloaded, the Vagrant file actually, so we'll just run Vagrant up. And you can see I've run into some errors here. Let me minimize this so we can see what's going on. So I ran into a couple of problems when I tried setting this up before. This was one of them. So what I need to do here is apt-get install VirtualBox. And now we're going to try and run Vagrant up, and we need to put in here as well provider VirtualBox. You see here, could not be found. It's attempting to find and install. This is a Metasploitable3 Ubuntu 14.04, and then we also have, I believe, a Windows 2008 VM that it's also going to find and install. Yeah, Win2K8 as well. So we'll just let it set those up. So that took about 10 minutes to download everything and install it. Everything seems to have gone through okay, and both machines appear to have been set up. So let's have a look. If we vagrant-help, Vagrant global status will show us the status of our environments. So let's have a look at that. Vagrant global status, and we'll see that we have two VirtualBox machines running. One is our Ubuntu machine and one is the Windows machine, which are our two vulnerable Metasploitable machines. So we can destroy them using this command, and if we want to find anything else, we can check the help. So now if we check the ifconfig, we'll see that we have this VirtualBox 0 network and we have this IP address. So let's take that IP and run a ping scan. So we'll run nmap-sp for ping scan and paste in that IP, and we're going to run over all IPs between 1 and 255 and see what ports we currently have open. Well, not ports, sorry, which IPs are online. So now that we found that there are two IPs, this point 1 and this point 3, we would then go further to run port scans against them and see what operating systems are running, etc. So we can do that again with nmap. Let me just check the aliases I have set up actually. So if we grep, I'm going to grep maps from my bash aliases, and I have two commands here. One was from whenever I did the OSCP, I created a custom script, and essentially I would loop through, provide a list of IP addresses and use mass scan to scan all TCP and UDP ports, and then it would print out a list of all the ports for all of the IPs that you provided, and then they would be fed into nmap to do the more detailed scans. So it was really handy for the OSCP, and if you're in a CTF where you've got a short amount of time, or if you want to try and route one of the hack the box machines as soon as they get up, you might want to use something like mass scan to quickly scan the ports before you drill into the details with nmap. So I'm going to use the QMaps here, which is going to call nmap. It's going to look for the services, it's going to do operating system detection, it's going to do an aggressive scan, and it's going to do service enumeration, and then we're just passing in the IP address. So let's run QMaps and 172.28.128.1. It might take a little while to run. While we're doing that, let me go over as well and let's open up VirtualBox. We can go into VirtualBox and see our two VMs here. We have the Ubuntu and we have our Windows 2K8, our Windows 2008 Server Edition. So we might want to go and change some settings. In fact, we need to change some settings. Let's first of all go in here and update our network settings, we want to go and change the network adapters so that they both are host only adapters and both on the VirtualBox net. And we may also want to adjust the graphics settings as well. It's currently set to 8 meg. You might also want to put up the RAM as well. It depends how much you have set up. In this case, it doesn't look like it actually allows me to update the graphics settings there. That's fine. I'll just leave that. Let's go and do the same with the Windows system. Just go and change the network configuration and make sure that they're both on host only and connected to the VBox net 0. We'll go back, OK. And you can see that our scan has come back there. In this case, it's a Linux system. It doesn't look like one of our vulnerable systems, and because it's a 0.1, that's likely to be the kind of host, so which would normally be, the router. So we'll try and run that again with the 0.3 address, and let's also just check, because I believe that the IP settings there may have been causing some issues, so that wouldn't have shown up. Let's grab the ping scan again, and I'm just going to run that again to see if we've got any extra IPs here. Yeah, so now we've got an extra IP. We've got this 0.4 IP as well. So let's run that. qmaps 172.28.128.4, and that should be our Windows system, I would say. So let's go. We can show our Windows system here. We can go and log into it as well. Let me go and Control Alt and Delete. Oh, that was my host machine. Let me input keyboard. We can insert Control Alt and Delete, and then we can go and log in as Vagrant here. So we'll log in as Vagrant with the password Vagrant, and just let it do whatever it needs to do. It might have to boot up some services and stuff here. You can see it started some local host services. So some of the vulnerable services are going to need you to unlock the system to start. If we go back to our Nmap scan, that's just finished, and that's our Metasploitable3 Ubuntu system. You can see that we've got quite a few different ports available here of different services that we're going to be able to try and exploit. So we might want to go and take a look at some of those as well. So for example, we can see that we have a site running on port 80. Let's go and open that up in the browser and make sure that we can access it okay. And we can, that's good. So let's go back. Let's make sure our Windows. What I'll also do here as well, it's detected an IP conflict, okay. Let's see if that causes any issues. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, I mean, we've got a 0.3 and a 0.4. I can't see why that it shouldn't cause any problems. What I'm going to do here as well is just go and take some snapshots. So if we take a snapshot here and just call it pre-exploit, just in case we do anything which we want to revert, which is a good chance we will, seeing as we're going to be exploiting the systems. So if an exploit goes wrong and breaks the service, or you accidentally get root and then delete some things that you shouldn't do, you'll be able to revert back to the pre-exploit state. Keep that running. We'll go and do the same thing for our Metasploit as well. So we can go here and let me show this. And then take a snapshot, pre-exploit. And if we go back to our Nmap, yeah, it's run against the Windows system. We can see we've got plenty of ports open there. It's tried to discover all the services. We have a port open here as well, 8383. So we could go and double check that and make sure we're able to access the web server. from here. So 8383, you can see there it needs to be HTTPS, and we would need to accept the risks because it's a self-signed certificate. But yeah, we've got an error there, but it looks like it's made it through there anyway. That's good. I'll also mention that you have the option of moving those VMs out of your virtual machine. So if you built Metasploitable inside your virtual machine, you might want to now move these VMs out to your host machine so they're on the same level as your penetration testing machines, so Kali or Parrot or whatever you're using. So to do that, you can just go in and turn the machines off and go to File and Export Appliance, and then just export the OVA files, copy them over to your host machine, and then you can import them into VirtualBox there. I had no problems doing that myself with either machine, but I will mention that if you use VMware Workstation, like I use as your main virtual machine virtualization software, then I did have problems with that. I was able to use the Metasploitable Ubuntu, no problem. As soon as it booted up, you're able to scan it from the Parrot system, so obviously the IP range would be different. You'd be using this IP range rather than this VirtualBox net, but there were no problems there. But the Windows 2K, 2K8 edition, Windows Server 2008 did have some problems, and I saw a lot of issues on VMware forums and stuff about similar issues whereby essentially there's no network adapter, you're not able to install it, you're not able to install VMware tools, you're not able to do very much in it. But I didn't have any problems at all inside VirtualBox. So if you use VirtualBox, or if you want to try and play around with it in VMware and move it out to the host level, that's fine as well. Or you might just want to keep everything contained inside, but it's just in case you don't want virtual machines inside of virtual machines and you'd rather have them on the same level. That's an option. A couple of other things I'll mention. While I was trying to resolve the issues of exporting the Windows Metasploitable VM over to VMware Workstation, I tried to look for some pre-built VMs, and so I'll leave a couple of links in the description. There's this one here which leads to Metasploitable3 releases, where you can actually go and download the releases here. So you can just go and download the OVA file, and this is to build like the Windows system. So if you just want to download the Windows system already, I'll also leave this link. There was an issue raised on the official Metasploitable3 GitHub, and there's a couple of links on here that people have left to Windows systems that have already been built. So I did try that as well. Unfortunately, none of them worked in VMware for me, but they were working okay in VirtualBox. So that's an option. I'll also raise this as well. I saw this on Reddit that somebody having similar issues with the 2008, and somebody had left a link to a 2012 version which they had put together and said that it works in VMware. So there's some options as well. Throughout these videos, I'm not too sure what I'll be using. Mostly I'll probably stay inside VMware, but I might occasionally move to VirtualBox on my host machine as well. So just to let you know that that's an option for you, and you might see the IP address ranges and networks and stuff change throughout my videos depending on what software that I'm inside. So just to follow up on that, this is the VirtualBox on my host system, and I've copied over the Ubuntu Metasploitable3 and the Windows Metasploitable3. I've got those running. I've got Kali Linux running here. I've also got the Parrot here as well, but just to show we can also do this with Kali. We've got this running. We can see that we've got our Ubuntu system there just waiting on the login screen, and we have our Windows system. The network, I had some issues here with the network drive, but you know, most of the services should be fine on it. And just note as well, in doing that, if you add these different machines here, what you'll want to do is go and set up a network. Where is it? Preferences, network. I just set up here Pentest Lab and then set the IP range that I wanted. So in here now, in our Kali machine, if we check the IP settings we're on 10.10.10.4, so we can do nmap-sp. You can see I've already run this here as well to get an idea what machines are up, and we should see that we've got our 0.4, which is our Kali system, but we've also got our 0.5 and our 0.6, which is going to be our Metasploitable systems. So we can go ahead then and try and just I'll run an aggressive scan on, you can see I've also done that already. So if we run this scan, and we should expect this to come back with the services for our two different Metasploitable virtual machines. And those scans completed, so we've got our 0.6 machine, which is the Ubuntu machine. We can see that we've got our services running here, the same stuff that we had a look through when we initially set this all up. And then obviously we have our 0.5 machine, which is going to be our Windows machine. And again, we can see all the services running as they should be. So that'll wrap it up for this video. From now on, we'll just be going through some tool demonstrations using these systems that we've got set up now. Hopefully, if you followed along with this video, you've got something working, whether it's inside VMware or VirtualBox, and whether you have VMs inside VMs or whatever you're doing. As long as something's working, we'll be able to proceed with the rest of the videos. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Thanks.